Today's devotion is called Cistern Situation, and we are on day 157, June the 6th, and we are still in the book of Jeremiah. In fact, if you want to go ahead and read Jeremiah 38 through 40, you will know the story that I am talking about today. Now, the featured verses include Jeremiah 38, 7 through 10. But Ebed-melech the Ethiopian, a eunuch, while he was in the king's palace, heard that they had put Jeremiah into a cistern. Now the king was sitting in the gate of Benjamin, and Ebed-melech went out from the king's palace and spoke to the king, saying, My lord the king, these men have acted wickedly in all that they have done to Jeremiah the prophet, whom they have cast into the cistern. And he will die right where he is because of the famine, for there is no more bread in the city. Then the king commanded Ebed-melech the Ethiopian, saying, Take 30 men from here under your authority and bring up Jeremiah the prophet from the cistern before he dies. Due to long periods of drought back in biblical times, it was really common for cisterns to be dug, and these were like underwater or underground water reservoirs, and they were dug into the earth, very similar to like a well, but there was some differences to it. And sometimes these cisterns were actually even carved into rocks as well. They were like long and deep holes, and these large holes would collect rainwater. And these holes were so deep that there was no way for a man to escape if they fell into one, or if they got dropped into one, like what Jeremiah did. There was just no way to get out by themselves without the aid of people above ground. And the leaders knew this when they dropped Jeremiah into it. And with the rainwater and other moisture below the surface, you can visualize what the base of a cistern may have looked like. I mean, it's safe to say that some cisterns may have been, full of mud and slush, and you don't know how deep that was, and it could have caused a very quick death by way of sinking or even, drowning. And if the water was limited in the cistern, then the next form of death would most likely be starvation, which seemed to be the concern in Jeremiah's situation. He was in this cistern, and most likely it was dry, and there was a drought going on, and he was there and left to starve. So the people who threw him into this cistern, they hated his prophecies, and they purposed in their heart to do whatever they could to cause his death. And yet there was one man, Ebed-melech, and he felt this sense of urgency to stand up against what was happening to Jeremiah. And he did not agree with these leaders, and he took measures to speak up to save Jeremiah's life. Now, some Bible scholars believe that he was one of the favored servants of the king, and these Bible scholars that I've read believe that he used his influence to plead with the king to let him get Jeremiah out. It's oftentimes great, even in the midst of, a boss that may not necessarily believe in God. We still have the opportunity to have favor in their sight, and this could have been very well what was happening. So taking this bold step with so many people wanting Jeremiah dead was probably very scary, and it could have been possibly life-threatening for Ebed-melech, but he chose to step out anyway with this urgency and with this boldness. And the king ended up granting Ebed-melech a team of 30 men to help with getting all the ropes together and pulling Jeremiah out. And I mean, the question would come is, I wonder how deep this cistern death trap truly was, since there was a need for 30 men to assist. And maybe the king didn't necessarily think that 30 men were needed, but sometimes the king was like, take 300 horsemen, or 30 men when it could really be, realistically may have, only needed half that or 10 or whatever. But he gave Ebed Melech 30 men, and that could have been his way of saying, I'm going to be gracious to you. You have my blessings. Go do this. And what's interesting is, who did he choose to go with him? I don't know. Maybe I wonder if, all 30 of those men were in agreement with the mission that they were out, to do. I wonder if, all of those men were in agreement with Ebed Melech's, request to get him out. Or I wonder if there was some of those people that didn't like Jeremiah's prophecies. I don't know who these men were, but the reality of it is he set out on a mission, and he was very bold to stand, even if he stood alone. And the challenge, or not really challenge, but the imploration is to not be afraid to go deep with someone who needs saving. He went to bold measures, and he was willing to go deep into that cistern process to get him dug out. And God will see your efforts and will bless you for your willingness to head into the cistern for others. And I say that because I don't know if Ebed Melech was actually one of the men who, was dropped down there to pull him out. I don't know if he actually was one of the men or if he just oversaw the whole process. But he was willing to do what it took to get him out of there because he saw the wrongness that was done to Jeremiah. And we see later in the story that God spared Ebed Melech when the Babylonians came and they captured Jerusalem. And this was in chapter 39, verses 16 through 18. We see that God spared his life. He saved a life and ultimately was saved himself because he dared to face someone's cistern situation. Today's challenge to dig deeper is to ask yourself if you have a sense of urgency in your spirit to act on behalf of someone else so that they can be saved from destruction. Is there anyone in your life that needs salvation or that is going down a wrong path, and maybe you're the only voice in that person's life? Maybe you are the one that is willing to go down into the cistern when no one else will, voice the urgency to help that person get out. It just takes one bold person to stand in the gap for someone. So the question is, what can you do today to be the one person to save someone from their cistern? Sometimes we're in cisterns because we, actively chose to get into a situation that is going to ultimately destroy us. But other times, it could be the actions of others that drive us into this, and we had no choice. I don't know. I mean, and an example could be that maybe there's somebody in a marital situation or a relationship where someone just clearly has made, poor choices, and choices so far gone that, their family needs to be saved. I don't know the situation, and I don't know what people's cistern situation would be that you could, step in and be that person in the gap. But my question is, do you have a sense of urgency at all in your spirit to act on someone else's behalf so that they can be saved from destruction? And it could be that you are the one that vocalizes that. You are the one that provides basic salvation, saving from something that someone else is in. I don't know. Only you can know what other people's cistern situation is that you could be the voice of helping that person. So that's the question. Is there an urgency that you feel? Is there somebody in dire straits situation that you actually have the ability to help them? So in your reflection tonight, when you pull out your journal, ask yourself, did you act today on behalf of someone? and write down what you did and how you felt. In a year from now or 2 years from now, you're going to see the year today and, what you actually did. And when we pull out our journals from, into the future and we look back on this day and see the year that we did it, it would be interesting to continue updating on that. Or maybe you'll have future opportunities to be the one to help someone else's cistern situation. And Jeremiah got out. So let's keep plugging away and making the Bible applicable for our lives today. And until tomorrow, keep rinsing, reflecting, and repeating. God bless you.